welcome to a question and answer session of Nana and Ollie Go Wild. So today we're going to be taking on our second question.
And answer?
Yeah. But we thought we're going to tackle this one in a slightly different way. We're going to read out the email we've received and try and respond to it in the best way we can.
Before this, we've obviously sat down and talked about it for a bit, and thought about things. And should we go for it?
Yeah, so I'm just going to go ahead and read what we've got. So it's from a viewer named Maria. So it says, I have no idea if you could help with any of this, or go over some basics around it, but I'll give an outline of where I'm at and why I feel so stuck. I used to work in residential jobs because even though I was on a minimum wage, I had free accommodation, so I was able to save money each week and not have to work year round. As a gypsy soul, I needed time away in nature and abroad in the sunshine. And as I didn't have job satisfaction anyway, I didn't want to be tied to a never-ending job. It allowed me to find out more about myself and push my boundaries in what I thought I was capable of. However, after getting sick at a farm job, I haven't been right since, and in terms of gut issues and anxiety creeping in. This was 2015, and I had a job which was sexist, and I felt I had to prove my worth because I'm female. The other jobs after that fell through, and it meant I ended up in my hometown. I knew this wasn't the best idea because my family are so disruptive, and as Christmas and winter got nearer, my mood dropped. But then, my dad told me that I'm an embarrassment, never achieved anything, have nothing to show for my life, that I should be married with children by now, I'm 30, and a few days later I heard my mum tell her friend on the phone that she wished she'd had 2 kids like my brother. So, with having no friends from being nomadic for 5 years, and parents that didn't have a good thing to say about me, I ended up suicidal. I stopped eating, which was the gut issues I had been experiencing for around 9 months anyway. I dropped a lot of weight and was a bag of bones, being isolated and at that point agoraphobic. I was ashamed of how I looked, being so thin and unhealthy. I had developed an eating disorder, which was made worse by my mum watching what I ate, or asking, is that it? Or any number of things which brought attention to the issues. I was totally stuck. I'd stopped driving, which previously I had lived and travelled Europe in a camper van. So my entire life has been lost for 2 years. I'm starting to get better now. I've put weight on and started to drive and go out alone. But I have no passion for anything. I don't know what job I want to do. I just know I want to help others not go through the things that I have. And I need to move away from my narcissistic family. And I need purpose in life and to be fulfilled. But have you come across any groups or ways to try to get back to a life? Or create a life again? I've realised for 30 years I've been emotionally bullied for my views and choices. So I need to get rid of those people and do what I want. But I'm not sure how to meet people with mental health issues that understand the struggle, because I feel very vulnerable when I try to do anything, because non-mental health sufferers just don't understand and make me feel even worse. I have to watch what I say, and I feel bad by just trying to pretend I don't get anxious, etc., which leads to becoming more anxious. I have seen care farms for mental health issues, but as I'm not driving and nothing is local, I can't really do those things either. If you're able to cover any of this, I would be hugely grateful. I'm looking forward to your next video. I've watched them all now. Thank you. Thank you, Maria.
Thank you indeed. That's
yeah,
very special to read, and
yeah, and thank you for sharing all that with us. It's not easy to do that. And also for allowing us to kind of read that out.
We feel very privileged to be able to to do that and to discuss this.
Yeah.
So I hope you find anything that we say helpful.
Yeah, so I guess the first thing to acknowledge there is that there's a lot's happened for you over, well, not only your entire life, but certainly the last few years. It's been quite a struggle from what it sounds, and actually you've done incredibly well to come to this point that you're at, where you're starting to feel a little better, and you're starting to think, what am I missing in my life? In lots of ways, and I'm sure we'll kind of come back to this, but it sounds like you've come through a lot of the kind of darkest parts of what you've been through already, and you're starting to kind of focus on recovery, I suppose, and think about the future again, which is amazing. Yeah, it's really good.
And we wanted to say that you've done a lot of hard work to think for those things and say them so neatly and build a story of who you are. And that takes a lot of internal reflection, a lot of time to put inside to be able to do that. And it's not easy to do. However, you have done it, and that's...
And yeah, just having that really clear narrative of the things that have happened to you and why they've happened lends a lot of strength to kind of recovery and moving forward, which I see quite a lot when people are kind of doing better.
So there's a few themes that we picked out, some common ones. And one of the first things that occurred to me was feeling stuck and wanting to move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one I picked out as well.
And also wanting to belong somewhere in a group of people that understand you. And also not wanting to be alone and to go through that alone. And although we may not be alone per se, when we are with other people, it can feel lonely if they don't understand us. So it seems that finding a tribe that's right is where perhaps you might feel you want to go. And it's important to see whether anything that we say rings true with you, and to follow those strands that do, and not to follow those strands that don't, and perhaps they might be useful for someone else, and then in that way you might be of great help to somebody else as well. So I don't think you are alone in feeling like this. I think it's quite common to be part of this uncertainty of where to go, and I'm not sure what the right thing to do is, and looking for a way forward that sits right and rings true.
Yeah, so I mean, it might be worth starting off by talking a little bit about belonging, which is something that we touched upon very briefly in one of our other videos already, but kind of a buzzword at the moment, certainly in healthcare, kind of like well-being was for a while, and still is, I think. It's getting picked up. Belonging in the sense, it's something we kind of experience as human beings, as animals. This sense that we are supposed to be in a certain situation, and that situation can be environmental, physically, my space, do I belong here? It can be cultural, it can be familial, like in your family, do you feel you belong? Friendship groups, and often if we feel very comfortable in our lives and the way that they're going, you might experience this sense of things just feel right where I am at the moment. On the other hand, you know, we can really experience the opposite of that as well, and from my point of view, I suppose, you really notice when people are kind of experiencing that opposite, that alienation in their life. You know, perhaps the culture, the society they're living in doesn't sit with them. Perhaps people around them are telling them they don't fit in, or they don't belong, or they should be a different way. And that in itself can make us ill. That can lead to our physical and mental health suffering after a while. You know, if you fundamentally are just different from your surroundings, environment, culture, family, friends, whatever, a real kind of jarring sensation can occur, and that can lead us to ill health, as I say. So that's why it's important to always strive and seek for either reconciliation with the things that are different in our lives, or to move away from them, as you say. You know, to find a different way of life. And you know, from what you're saying, it sounds like you've experienced a bit of all of that. You know, you're seeking some sort of recognition from those around you, that you want to live in a certain way, and a certain way that you have lived previously, and perhaps you want to get back to that. Is that making sense?
It is making sense. And I want to add on to that, just to build from the things that make sense to me as well, is from listening to the email, there were a few things that I picked up, and again, I'm wondering whether they are true for you. It's one of those was, what am I supposed to be doing, rather than what do I want to do. And certainly a lot of people can find themselves in that situation, and even the language we use, or I should do this, or I should do that. And certainly I can catch myself doing it also. What is it that you want to do? And once you can really answer that, then the rest of it, almost you can see the path somewhere. If it's not there, you can make it. But answering that question is the most important, and you've already started to do that very clearly.
Yeah.
And that really shows.
Yeah, actually, if we're taking out some of the, you know, talking about the language you use, actually, when you feel lightest in kind of your tone and what you're talking about, you know, when you're talking about being a gypsy soul, you're identifying kind of who you are and maybe who you want to be. There's a bit of pride in that, I think, a bit of a sense of who you are, calling out perhaps. You know, that was maybe a part of your life that you connected with.
And treasured most.
Yeah.
Which brings me to another point, which was courage for authenticity. It's that courage to be who you are, and to go with that without asking permission, which sometimes can be difficult, not to ask permission. And identify who you want to be in the future. And sometimes that can be about what you've enjoyed about in the past, so you know, being outside in nature and travelling and being a gypsy soul. And the other thing that I thought about was trying to fit in with the way you are, rather than finding people that you fit in with already. And there's a difference in that, and I'm pretty sure that people with similar ways of viewing the world do exist, and we'll be talking a little bit, well, possibly talking a little bit about that in a bit.
Just on that point, I suppose, something that seems to be being talked about a lot at the moment is this idea that people in your life, like family and things, aren't right for you, they're bad for you, that kind of thing. I think that's a really interesting concept, you know, and sometimes it's really obvious that the people who we grew up with, who are biologically related to us, that kind of thing, it isn't working. You know, something in those relationships is clashing, it's not working, we're almost getting damage from them, maybe we're causing damage. A lot of people at the moment seem to be interpreting that as a kind of toxicity, or that's something that people are doing to us. Sometimes that is the case, you know, some people aren't right for us. The other thing that can happen in those situations is that because we're not fitting in, we don't belong, we're not happy with those situations, those relationships just aren't going to work, you know. But it doesn't mean that those people can't be in our lives in some fashion in the future. So something that I say to a lot of people is, you know, change your life and then see how those people fit into it. Once we start to make positive changes in our life, it becomes really obvious whether those people are right for us or not. You know, but the change comes from within us. And sometimes that heals those relationships, sometimes it just gives us the strength and courage to move on from them in a healthy way. So I hope that helps in some way. Yeah.
Yes, well, thank you for bringing that up. It's really important.
Yeah, because I, you know, that's something that Maria's certainly kind of struggled with, and possibly is continuing to struggle with. This kind of, I suppose it's a codependency with biological family, isn't it? That you know, they give because we live in a society where we get tied into our families, essentially. You know, we experience immense guilt if those relationships aren't working both ways. And again, we can get quite a lot of damage if the people that are there to nurture us give us mixed messages. You know, they're feeding us, but they're also giving us some emotional backlash, you know. So to kind of balance those is incredibly difficult.
Yeah, but it's definitely possible. It's about what you said, finding truth within, and then things then to follow after that. We talked about some possible ideas, if you'll be happy to receive them. Whether they're helpful or not, it's entirely up to you to decide. For some of the questions that you asked. So the main one for me actually was hearing you say about the expectations that are laid upon you about what a young female in her 30s should be doing with her life, i.e. Being married and having children, because 30 is such a ripe old age that this is the only thing that a woman in her 30s should do. I'm more in my 30s, so I feel also quite strongly about this. One possibility that may speak to you is a women's group. There are many women's groups around. I'm not sure which part of the world you are in. Face-to-face ones are beautiful, and then the collective and the energy and the spirit they bring within, but there are also some online ones, online communities, which you might be able to join if you want to. And a lot of women in those groups would have experienced similar issues, and that's what brings them in together to form a collective in the first place. And women who are drawn to those kind of groups are very open-minded, and generally, from my experience, it's a really beautiful thing to be in, especially if they are in nature. That's a certain really beautiful force. So that's one thing that I would suggest if you wanted to look into that. It's entirely up to you.
Yeah, and that's something that's helped quite a lot of the people I've worked with as well. They've accessed similar kind of services and organisations and groups, and that's been really beneficial. So
yeah,
I definitely echo that.
There's some lone hiking women's group on Facebook. They are certainly the ones that I frequented are really great to be part of, and to get inspiration from women hiking alone all over the world and doing amazing things. So that's something to look into if you're interested. There are some places of people living out in the land and moving from place to place. So these exist as well. They are around Europe and around the world. That's really interesting.
Yeah, nomadic communities, essentially.
Yes, they still happen today, which is fantastic.
And I wonder if it's something that's not going to increase actually in the future. You know, there are other Marias out there
Certainly are.
who don't want to necessarily live the traditional lifestyle. You know, and that doesn't have to be an extreme. You know, you don't.
No.
It's not necessarily fully nomadic, or but alternative kind of settlements, communal living, people with different philosophies and ways of looking at life.
The tiny house movement emerged from America. I don't know if you've heard about that. You will find loads of videos on YouTube on the tiny houses and tiny house movement. A few other things that we talked about is I sensed a real strong want and wish to help others and help others through some of the things that they might go through that you have experience of, and feeling fulfilled. And I'm wondering whether there's a connection between the two. So there are some options that something I thought of. Again, it's up to you whether they mean anything to you. One of them was, again, I don't know which part of the world you live in. In the UK, there's something called Mind, the Mind charity. There might be some elsewhere as well. So they do some great work in supporting people, providing advocates and peer mentors and things like that, lived experience consultants. So there might be something that you might be interested in.
And that would give you access to a whole network of people who have experienced mental health problems, or have more understanding of it and more sympathy, perhaps, and more kind of empathy, compassion, whatever, just to give you that sense of not feeling so isolated as well, potentially.
Yeah, and certainly if not Mind, then any mental health networks or mental health charities, mental health trusts have paid and unpaid positions for people with lived experience, and they are thankfully today forming a real strong network at the core of services, because it's really important to have people who know what it's like, informing how things are done. So that's something that you may want to look more into. Before recording this video, we talked a little bit about outdoors and how Maria feels, you seem to feel at home outdoors. So maybe spending time outdoors. And now you mentioned about driving, and we're not quite sure how much you're driving at the moment and how much of an issue that is.
For me, I think the fact that you've started driving a little bit again is another really good sign that you're kind of headed towards recovery and some sort of normality for yourself again. I got the impression that was something from, living more on the road or kind of nomadic, as you say, that it's a huge part of that lifestyle, just a sense of freedom that gives you and independence. Could be really key to you moving on and finding yourself again. And when I talk about finding yourself, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to discover the you from several years ago. Really, you're looking for a new you now. And that's exciting and also really scary, because it involves change, and I think that's something that it is always present in our lives, but when it's really obvious it can be quite daunting. But as I say, exciting too, because it's that time where you start to look at things with fresh eyes as well, and as your kind of email shows, dissatisfied with aspects of it, and that's going to spur you on to make kind of progress in your life again.
And dissatisfaction, as uncomfortable as it is when we feel it, it's one of the greatest things that pushes us forward to find something new, and something more meaningful, and something that is right.
There are several species of trees that can't germinate without forest fires, which I think is quite interesting. So, you know, sometimes you need difficulty to find new growth. Is that cheesy enough?
I think that's very beautifully put.
Okay, cool.
I think we've probably spoken enough. I hope we've done your wonderful email justice, and I hope that we have. I wanted to briefly just summarise what we spoke about.
That would be helpful because I feel like I rambled.
No, I don't think you did.
Okay, good.
We spoke about, and let me know if I missed something. We spoke about how things are unclear at the moment, and how you really missed living and travelling for the best part of a year, and feeling that gypsy soul, which brings you a lot of joy, and kind of bottom part of your belly makes you happy. So it's about finding that. How things are a little bit difficult with your family, and how to move on from that in a healthy way. Finding the courage to be authentic, to be yourself, finding your tribe. We spoke, some suggestions we made are about finding a women's group, looking at how nomadic communities live, spending more time in nature, and looking at how you can support other people who have gone through mental health difficulties. And I really wanted to finish by summarising what I heard from your email in terms of what I thought when I read it, Maria. It was that you really have a strong sense of who you are, and that you have the courage and strength within you to go where you want to go. It's about finding the right path and having the courage to follow it. And I'm sure that the path that you choose will be very inspirational to many other people. And what you've shared with us, I think, is also a commonality for definitely a few other people. So yeah, it's been a real pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank you for writing to us, and we'd love to hear how you get on in the future. So thank you very much. Yeah,
all the best, and I hope you enjoy this video and any of the future ones that you may watch, and see you again.
Bye.
Bye. Happy birthday, Jasmine.
Happy birthday, Jasmine.
You're 1 year old. You're no longer a kitten, but you're just as cute.
She's all tuckered out.
She is, from too much playing. She had 2 new toys.
Some new food and some new treats.
I wish I could sleep as much as her all day long. It's a happy life, I think. Got leaves from the garden.